Now, if there was one thing that stopped me from creating content like this, it was that I used to tell myself, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough to make videos. And I told myself that story for a long time in a lot of different things. I told myself I wasn't good enough to write fiction books. I told myself I wasn't good enough to have a podcast. I told myself I wasn't good enough to do videos. And that was until I realized that, there are different levels of good enough and that I can be happy enough with the level that I'm at. Take for example music for a moment. Right, we have all different levels of people at different skill levels in music. You might find the real professional musicians. These are the people who, are in orchestras, people who have dedicated maybe 30 years of their life to playing the violin or whatever. These people are probably at the peak of, the musical skill. So we have these people up here. Now, does that mean that everybody below this point shouldn't be making music or that shouldn't be allowed to record? No, because a lot of people down here are different levels. We've got the people down here probably who are garage bands. We have the people down here who probably play in local bars and pubs. We have the people maybe who play at weddings. Then we have the people who probably do have some gigs in the local area. And then, again, working your way up, we have all the different kind of levels of musicians. And it's going to be the same for you as well too, that whatever you're doing right now, you might say, I'm not good enough. But you could be good enough at the level you're at. Again, going back to my fiction, I stopped myself from writing fiction because I said, well, I'm not a fiction writer. We've got the Stephen Kings and we have all these great fiction writers up here. I'm nowhere near there, so that means I shouldn't write. And yet, there are fiction writers at levels below that. So does that mean that none of us should do fiction unless we're as good as Stephen King? Or does it mean that we all have our own different levels? Again, if you go to Amazon, you're going to find some fiction writers that are people's favourite fiction writer and other people detest them because they want their fiction writer at this level and the fiction writer that they are criticising is at this level. And yet there are people who love this fiction writer at this level and don't care for the one up here because he's too highbrow or the words he uses too big or his storylines are too complicated and they don't like it. So bear that in mind, whatever you're doing right now, you might say to yourself, I'm not good enough. But there is a scale. You don't need to be at the top. Yes, you might be closer to the bottom right now, but there are people down here who appreciate people who are at this level. So don't dismiss where you are right now, that you're not good enough, because you can get some fans, you can get some followers, you can get some readers at this level. And the more you show up, the more you create the content, the more you do whatever you're doing regularly, you will start moving up that scale. And when you think about it, why should anyone only be allowed to do something because they're at the very, very peak? There should be room for all of us along here. So give that some thought today and don't buy into this idea that you're not good enough. You could be good enough for some people right now where you are. Just take action. Get the content created. Do whatever you need to do. Put it out there and see what happens next. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.